And we are going to hear some more governor bonding requests from state agencies. But you guys, we have a fun day on the deck for us. Look at those cute little animals. We're going to hear from the Minnesota Zoo and a visit from the zoo animals, as well as we're going to also do the Met Council and the Minnesota Historical Society. So we're going to start with the zoo. And if you want to state your name for the record, and go ahead and start your presentation.
I'm Alexandria Tassa, Judy Armstrong, and here we have some of our ambassador animals at the zoo, so I hope you're all right. We're going to walk around because that's what these animals do. Their job is to meet visitors and guests at the zoo and also throughout the state, up close like this, so no worries, nobody's going to jump. But this is quite a treat. One of our ambassador animals, it's actually a really popular one. It is a Solomon Island skink, S-K-I-N-K, skink, not stink. And they're a tropical rainforest lizard, and this is a really fun animal for us that we get to bring out. We also have it in our shows at the zoo too, so that our guests can see animals that you might not necessarily see right here in our own backyard, but still have a great impact in nature. And so one of the jobs for this animal is agreeing to the nature's recycler. And so, our mission in connecting people, animals, and the natural world to save wildlife. Well, here you go. Here's an important one, even all the way in the Solomon Islands. Yeah, we can tie it right back home here to Minnesota because we have nature's recycler as well. It might not be a skink like this, but it could be any of our kind of creepy crawlies that we have here, as well as our decomposers. Now, this cool lizard is considered a large skink. We have skinks in Minnesota, and our skinks are probably about this long. So this is considered a giant skink for its size. And the cool thing about this one is it's made for living in the trees. So check out that really cool tail that you notice. It is a grasping prehensile tail. So it's like a seatbelt for climbing in trees. And then this little fella has a lot of long toes and some really sharp claws made for living in the trees. And if he's sticking out his tongue at you, he's saying, "Good morning. Hello. How are you smelling today?"
Remember when I stick my tongue out at you guys?
Yeah.
It's good morning.
Yeah, they say hello. Okay, is this food? Is it habitat? Or something else? And to you guys, since this is an ambassador animal and your job is to meet guests and be comfortable, you're just part of the habitat. You just smell a little bit different than the zoo. Now, the fun thing about this Solomon Island skink is they're all green in color. Just like a color grandpa. Think back to the old school days, right, with coloring. And so you'll find some in our collection that we have, that we take care of, have been really dark green, like our shirts that you see here. Some have been like a gray green. This one's a fun kind of yellowish green, but it helps them to camouflage with where they live. So a really fun ambassador animal. This is just one of the types of lizards that we bring out, whether it be at a school or a hospital, assisted living, or right here at the zoo when people are coming to visit us as their guests. You can see it at shows or demos from the zoo. We have lots of mammals, reptiles, birds, and all those little creepy crawly invertebrates too. Which, you know what? All have a place at the zoo for us. I know he's getting that bird audience today. So Judy has another guest to share with you. Maybe some of you don't like the cool critters. So she'll warm it up for you.
Yeah, warm and fuzzy. Thanks, Alex. So here we have our South American chinchilla, and I just have to stand here so you can see a picture of it. So, you were noticing those little whiskers moving around quite a bit, so smelling and sensing, big giant ears to help them hear, and then of course these two animals are some of our animal ambassadors, so animals that come out and visit the public, and school kids, visitors to the zoo, when we travel with our outreach program. There's some of the animals that go so that we can tell our story, and then all those learners are experiencing something a little bit different. So they might be someone that hears things, they might be somebody that sees something, and occasionally we do get a little bit closer, and they get up the close up so you can get a little more experience. And a chinchilla doesn't ever take a bath. So they only take a bath in sand. They have such dense fur that they can't get wet because they wouldn't be able to fluff and dry up. So
they live in the wild?
They live in the Andes Mountains in Peru, South America. And they aren't a species that there's a lot of. They're protected and they're not very, sorry. Okay. There's a lot of conservation programs going on to help them.
Anything else?
No, maybe questions?
Yeah, sure. Any questions? I know there's gotta be a couple because they're pretty cool.
What are their names?
They do, that's a great question. So the zoo has a number for everybody, just like we have a social security number, right? But we do give them names. This is Pepper because Pepper has speckles, like pepper flakes on there. And then Judy has Nimbus after a cloud because they're so fluffy. They have such light fur, folks, that when their hair goes off, it doesn't straight fall to the ground. It actually goes airborne first because it is such fine hair. We have 1 hair per follicle that's coming out. They have 60 because where they live is quite different from our tropical lizard. They live in the Andes Mountains, like Judy said, so they need to have that built-in fur to keep them warm. It's winter every day where they live, so Minnesota in the wintertime is fantastic for them. But that's also why they don't take that bath that Judy mentioned, because they get wet. It's like you wearing a wet winter coat outside, not good news. So yeah, really cool fur for them. Yeah. Great question. Any other questions about them? Favorite colors? Just kidding.
So, thank you guys. Madam Chair, committee members, I personally want to thank Judy and Alex. As the director of the zoo, we're very proud. They've been traveling, I don't know their tenure, but how many years have you guys?
20,
20?
30.
20 and 30 years. They've been bringing animals to people that cannot get to the zoo all over Minnesota. A lot of hospitals, a lot of nursing homes, a lot of special care facilities. So I just personally want to thank them so much because I've seen them in action a lot and they're really great. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, that was fun, members. I could almost take that chinchilla home. And I'm not really one for reptiles, but he is a little cutie, isn't he? Let's see here. We're gonna start with Director Frawley and Dr., is it Rivas?
Dr. Rivas, yes.
Fantastic. And we're gonna hear about the need for the hospital at the Minnesota Zoo.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. John Frawley, Director of the Minnesota Zoo. With me today, Dr. Rivas, head of our vet programs. We're going to tag team on this presentation, a little bit back and forth. I'll start the presentation with a little bit of, first we'll cover a little Zoo 101. We are going to cover our bonding request, the challenges of our current hospital we have at the zoo. We do have a little bit of a glimpse at the new hospital center that we're hoping to build. And then obviously we want to talk a little bit about asset preservation needs around the zoo, which are great. So a little bit to remind you of the zoo, we are a state agency, public-private partnership. We are a very unique state agency in the fact that we only get 37, this last funding, we've got 37% of our general funds from the state. 63% we need to raise ourselves like any Main Street business. So we have to roll up our sleeves and have a good business plan as well as receiving some state funds. We're the 5th largest zoo in the country. Most zoos are less than 30 acres. We are a huge zoo. We have a 24/7 campus, 365 days a year. So we are like operating a hospital itself or a small city. We are Minnesota's top gated attraction. Last year we hit 1.5 million visitors. So we are a major destination as a state agency. We're very proud that we reached those types of numbers. It's the highest attendance in the history of the zoo. So we're very proud of that. We also serve over 120,000 people free. A lot of people don't know that we are a free zoo to those who need us to be free. If somebody qualifies for general assistance, you come to the zoo for free any day you want. We are large, biggest environmental educator in the state, reaching over 83,000 students, over 1,000 schools. We are the largest, and host the largest zoo camp in the nation. So we are really strong on education. And all that said, people still call us a new zoo, but we are the campus itself is 50 years old. And as you know, is aging all at the same time. So our request is for a new animal hospital building. $17,675,000 is the request. Our asset preservation request is $3,810,000 with our total there in front of you. So I'm going to pass it on to Dr. Rivas to tell you a little bit about the hospital and then I'll come back in.
Thank you, Director Frawley. So as he said, our campus is approximately 50 years old, and the current hospital was the very first building built at the Minnesota Zoo before anything else opened up, which is why we are now having this mission-critical project to replace the outdated facility. It was first built in 1975, and it lacks the essential infrastructure to meet USDA and other regulatory standards in the veterinary industry, which poses significant risk to both animals and humans. As you can see here, the facility is not equipped to handle the approximately 5,000 animals at the zoo of great diversity of species, putting humans and animals in difficult working environments that are not ergonomic or safe. Our current hospital is deteriorating, particularly the animal holding spaces, which makes it impossible to properly house the diverse array of animals that call the Minnesota Zoo home. You can see on the left here some of our external holding areas that are no longer safe to hold animals and are in a condition that does not make sense to repair, would have to be replaced entirely to make them suitable for housing animals going forward. Additionally, our outdated surgical and treatment spaces for animals to perform procedures in are too small and also lack proper ventilation, posing risks to both humans and animals. You can see these surgical and treatment spaces here on this slide. We have struggled with a high rate of surgical infections due to the improper ventilation and just general challenges with working with animals in the space. That's a mountain lion on a folding table because we don't have room for a proper large animal surgical table in this area. One of the biggest challenges that inspired this project is the lack of outdoor garage or lack of indoor loading dock. The veterinary team is unable to keep our hospital vans ambulance ready with the necessary equipment and medications for rapid animal care because the vehicles are stored outside, so our medical supplies would be exposed to the extremes of the Minnesota climate, and that is not sustainable for their longevity. This is also a very difficult workspace for our staff. If you can imagine, every animal that comes to the hospital has to come in through this space up and over this loading dock, regardless of the weather, regardless of the time of day. So think about loading tigers, brown bears in and out over this dock. It's not a great work environment. And then you're also working out there in the weather conditions. We've actually had a staff veterinarian sustain a concussion out here when she went to grab an oxygen tank out of a van and slipped on the ice and hit her head on the concrete.
Okay, so we have obviously proposing a new hospital and wellness center for the Minnesota Zoo. The new facility has four main components to it. One is we want a world-class facility here in Minnesota. And so that's our primary, is that we can service those 5,000 animals Dr. Rivas talked about in a modern way. We also want this facility to be a teaching hospital that serves the entire state, and actually it serves the country, which she'll talk a little bit about. We want this to also address human health as well as animal health. And this new facility is designed to have partnerships and serve all of Minnesota. So the hospital itself is a $30 million project. We have received, and thank you, we've received previous state funding for the design, and we are in the middle of the design stages. We have our state request, but what I'm really excited about for the committee to know that we've been working on this project but for almost 5 years, and thank you for all the tours that everybody's taken. During this time, we have been raising money privately, and we've continued to work on raising money privately, and right now, we've just passed the $9 million mark of raising $9 million privately for this project. We always try to do that as much as we can. Our donors are a little bit fatigued, but they've really stepped up to make this hospital come to fruition. So we're glad to report that. Any other funds remaining, the foundation hopefully can cover those as well as with the request itself. I'm going to pass it back to Dr. Rivas.
So we want to share a little bit about what we're hoping to achieve with this new facility, both for the Minnesota Zoo as well as for our statewide partnerships with other animal and wildlife agencies. So the key thing is to create a safer, more ergonomic workspace to work with wildlife and zoo animal species and provide them the proper medical care that they need at current industry standards. This also provides additional diagnostic options like a new CT scanner equipped to handle the wide variety of patients from corals to dairy cattle that we care for at the Minnesota Zoo. It provides a new, larger surgical suite, as well as that proper large animal operating table, so we're no longer having dangerous carnivores on a folding table when we're caring for them at the zoo. Of course, we are also looking forward to providing a new indoor ambulance bay that helps keep our vehicles at a more consistent temperature so we can store our medical supplies that we need at a moment's notice in them. It also allows features for safely transporting animals in and out of the hospital. And again, this is not just for our Minnesota Zoo animals, but also our partner agencies that may be bringing their animals to this facility for that higher level of specialist care. And it will be centrally located on the zoo grounds. The current hospital is over a mile away from the main zoo. It was built as a quarantine facility, and it makes it hard to provide urgent and emergent care for animals at the zoo. We are also looking to provide updated animal holding spaces that are safer for the animals as well as the people taking care of them. These are to serve as recovery spaces for animals that are convalescing, coming back from illnesses or injuries, rescue animals that the zoo takes in to help our other state partners, as well as quarantine spaces for new animals to make sure they don't bring diseases with them to the zoo, and treatment spaces for those animals while they're in hospital, along with updated monitoring equipment like cameras that allow us to watch these shy animals remotely to better understand how they are coping while they're in our care. One of the key features is to make this into a teaching hospital for our zoo guests and Minnesota residents, as well as people throughout the country. This provides viewing areas for the public so they can observe procedures as they are happening. And this includes routine zoo guests as well as school field trips. We're also looking to create more conference spaces for teaching and learning opportunities for veterinarian conferences and workshops, as well as veterinary student internships and externships, and opportunities to collaborate better for research and preventative health work on these species and advancing treatment of zoological and wildlife species.
One really unique part of this hospital, something I learned, is that we need to build vet hospitals with human health. A few years ago, researching this project, I learned that the career of being a veterinarian or a vet tech is one of the highest mental illness levels of any career. In fact, the suicide rate in veterinarians is 4 or 5% higher than most occupations. And a lot of it comes back into the workspace and the work facilities. So we are designing this building with well-building standards. We want to set a kind of a tone for the country of how to do these types of buildings the right way for not just the animals, but for the people. The other unique design feature that we have is we don't need a lot of exotic hospitals like this in Minnesota. We need one good one. But the fact is we need this one to help everybody in the state of Minnesota. So we are working around the state, and we have a lot of partnerships already. I have 2 or 3 more coming online right now, working with the Minnesota Vet Association to really make sure that this hospital can serve all of Minnesota. So yes, it's at the Minnesota Zoo and serving the zoo, but we are going to have multiple partnerships and access for everybody around the state. And the expertise that we have, we're seeing a lot of exotics around Minnesota, and we get phone calls every day from vets all over the state for help. So this will help every vet in your hometown will be able to come here for workshops, help with their animals that they're seeing in their counties.
The other part we would like to touch on is the general veterinary crisis in Minnesota, as well as the country as a whole. Livestock producers in general, but as well as small and equine veterinarians are facing a shortage of qualified veterinarians to fulfill the needs as they continue to expand. According to the USDA, the shortage of rural veterinarians reached an all-time high in 2023, with 500 counties across 46 states classified as having a critical need for large animal vets, 7 of which were located here in Minnesota. And although the rural veterinary field is perhaps greatest pressed by this, it's felt throughout the veterinary profession, particularly in our post-pandemic age. Our goal with having this as a teaching hospital is to continue to inspire and help recruit the next generation of veterinarians, veterinary technicians, animal care professionals. A lot of folks come to the industry thinking they want to work with these exotic, really different species, and it's not necessarily the career path everyone is going to take, but it is a gateway to bring them in, help them learn about the opportunities, develop their passions, and then find their niche in the field.
Madam Chair, committee members, we also would like to just bring up that the Minnesota Zoo, like we said, is a 50-year-old zoo, 50-year-old campus, and we do have 3.8 million requests for a lot of the deferred maintenance throughout the zoo. This obviously, heat plants, boilers, bridges, decking, a lot of things you're seeing throughout Minnesota. The zoo has some of those same challenges. With that, Madam Chair, committee members, I would stand for questions.
Thank you. Representative Ryer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much for presenting today and for bringing the friends to see us. I've toured the veterinary hospital twice now on bonding tours and have been watching it become more and more in need. I've also been impressed by watching the people who are there training and working, and the quality of people and the dedication. I do have a couple of questions about the funding. I know that last year or last cycle, it was the governor's top priority, and I see that you differ now from the governor's recommendation. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Yep. Madam Chair.
Mr. Frawley?
Committee members, it's my understanding the governor's rec really focused on asset preservation instead of a capital project such as this one. I think it was the same situation last year, but we were able to work and get this in front of both committees and move forward with the same situation as it was last year. But I think that's, the way the governor approached it with his request, right?
Representative Ryer?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. About the asset preservation, the handout says that lists the priority needs, and it's a $3.81 million ask. How much of these needs, how far does that go, and do you have specific priorities within that? And what would you want to do with those funds specifically? Thank you.
Mr. Frawley?
Madam Chair, committee members, our list of asset preservation is a long list. I think that's probably true with pretty much all state facilities. We do have a prioritization list and a sequencing list, and that has to do with safety for humans and animals and priorities. Some of the top needs of that 3.8 million right now is our boiler system at the Minnesota Zoo I've just found out it failed this last year. And I found out that it was bought used 42 years ago at the zoo. So it was an $850,000 emergency fix, but that was just a temporary fix. So things like heating, which is a life support system. Heat is a life support system for people and for animals when we have the species that we have. Those types of pump stations, heat stations, the boiler systems would be some of the priorities for this year.
All right, next up, let's see, Representative Allen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question for either one of the individuals on the panel, I was just kind of wondering, is there any money currently being supplied by any of your partner groups, like the Lake Superior Zoo or North American Bear Center, Great Lakes, University of Minnesota, anything like that?
Mr. Frawley?
Yep, Madam Chair, committee members, not at this time, no.
Representative Allen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The other question I had is, could you help me understand a little bit more about the relationship you have with the University of Minnesota Vet School and some of the teaching components that they're working on, along with what you guys are proposing for your teaching components?
Who would like to take that? Dr. Rivas?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I can take that. So we've worked with the University of Minnesota College of Veterinary Medicine in several capacities. I think some of the biggest places we've overlapped have been their anesthesia department. Obviously, to work with our animals, most of them are not going to let us come up and put a stethoscope on them, so anesthesia is a big part of their job. So we take on their anesthesia residents to help them get the required caseload in non-traditional species they need to credential as part of their residency. We also take on University of Minnesota veterinary students as part of their fourth-year clinical rotations to gain additional animal experience outside the traditional dog, cat, horse, cow, pig that you get in veterinary school. And we collaborate with them in a variety of research capacities. Last year, we received Merck Animal Foundation funding for a veterinary summer scholars project in collaboration with the University of Minnesota. We have a very close working relationship with the Minnesota Raptor Center, and we send our staff back and forth between the two facilities to collaborate on projects that cater to our own unique expertise, and have also worked with them with their various specialists, dentists, et cetera, which provides opportunities, one, for us to get the highest level of care for our animals from specialists in the field, but it also improves career satisfaction for their staff, for staff retention, as well as additional training opportunities for their students, interns, and residents.
Representative Allen, you have a follow-up?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, for entertaining me on this. I was just kind of wondering, are you guys still currently working with the University of Minnesota as far as shipping animals over there to get work or anything like that done? And when I was in college at the U of M, I did do a stint at the vet school there, and it was always interesting when we had one of the guests coming over from the Minnesota Zoo. So I was just kind of wondering about that. Thank you.
Dr. Rivas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we do work with them on that. We do it on a case-by-case basis. I think one of the things to note is historically, the Minnesota Zoo did not have veterinarians that had trained specifically in zoo medicine. They kind of went the experiential route into the career and relied more heavily on the University of Minnesota. My current staff have all done some form of residency training and are board certified in zoo medicine. So now the expertise for caring for those animals is housed at the zoo versus externally. So what we end up actually doing is helping the university more with their non-traditional species versus our animals used to go to them. We help them more. That doesn't mean we still don't work with them. We do have a number of domestic species through our Wells Fargo family farm. So my morning started today at 6:30 a.m. with one of our Clydesdale horses colicking, and the first stop for that, if we can't stabilize it, is the University of Minnesota. So it is, the relationship is perhaps different than what it might have been 10 years ago, but it's still a strong partnership, and we regularly speak with the dean of the vet school on how to continue to evolve with our changing needs.
Is that good? All right, thanks, Representative Allen. Representative Zhang, enlighten us. Oh, goodness gracious. I got excited because you don't speak up very much. Let's see. Oh, Representative Scraba, of course, you'll fill in the void.
That is my job. If nobody's figured that out on this committee. I have a purpose. First of all, I want to thank you for coming here and giving the tour. That was one of the most enlightening tours, seeing the hospital, imagining taking a wild or a tiger, an animal that's not humanized, to move it from its cage to surgery and not have it where it's caged the whole way. It's like you just bring it out in the open and que sera, sera. Something happens, it happens. If it wakes up, if the meds weren't right, whatever it is. And it's kind of like, this is safety for the workers, safety for the public, safety for everyone. So very enlightening. And I appreciate you guys going around the state, looking at the different, we have two in Ely, the Bear Center and the Wolf Center, International Wolf Center. And to kind of ask your quick question, Representative Allen, a lot of these organizations aren't in a position to take donor money and give it to someone else. They expect it to stay with them, and it's kind of a dog-eat-dog world out there in this, and pun intended, by the way. So, you know, I appreciate you guys coming here, and I didn't have a question. I just fill in space. Thank you.
All right, Representative Lilly.
Thank you, Madam
Tough
Chair.
to follow up Representative Scraba, but.
Yeah, mine will be a little similar, I guess. So I've been on a bunch of tours to your place, and you know, and I guess generally mine are more comments. I think you've been really good stewards of the money that you receive through this committee and through Legacy, and kind of a testament. So I have no doubt that you'll spend the money well. had an interesting opportunity this summer, which I never had because I've always been on the daily side, but went there for one of your concert series this summer, and it was a totally different venue. And what a great place to be in at night. You know, there's different activity, and it was a little bit more adult. Not that I don't like kids, and being there with my grandkids, but it was pretty fun for the concert and walk on your skywalk, and just even got a camel ride. So that was kind of pretty neat. But anyways, thank you for being good stewards of the money.
Thank you.
Hey, does anybody else have any? Oh, Representative Fogelman.
Thanks for coming today. It's always fun to have the zoo here. You've asked for this money. I know the last biennium, when I was here, you asked for that. And here we are again. If you don't get that money for this hospital again this time, what's that going to look like going to the future? I mean, how long can you keep going in the facility as it is right now?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Frawley?
Committee members, thank you for that question. That's a very hard question. Literally every single day I worry about this also. I think Dr. Rivas and I share that. We're doing procedures in the field. We're doing procedures where we shouldn't be doing procedures because it doesn't make sense to bring them to a hospital. It doesn't work. So it is a continued stress. The staff have done an amazing job. We have increased our vet staff even to be able to counter some of the lack of facilities. But even that puts a lot of stress on us. Like I said, when there was no bonding bill last year, we just continued to raise money privately, and we have, like I said, are really proud that we've raised over $9 million. Like I said, that's a hard raise right now with a lot of donor fatigue. So we don't have hopes that we can raise much more. So this is really priority emergency funding for the Minnesota Zoo. We have 5,000 animals entrusted in our care. We have the health of our staff. So I don't have a good answer other than every day is hard to wait. The other thing with this project is this is probably a 1.5-year construction project too. So there is a lot of timing that we're going to have to cover until this facility is built. So timing is urgent, and we've been working on this project for 5 years. So it's been really urgent. So.
Vice Chair Fogelman?
I see that you have the asset preservation list as 3.8 million is what was recommended, and you have 67 million in deferred maintenance. If that would get funded and the hospital didn't get funded, I mean, which one's the more of the necessity, I guess I would ask?
Mr. Frawley?
Committee members, our hospital is our most critical need right now. Obviously, asset preservation, we have some critical projects that we've outlined with other committee members, like our boiler is, in need. So they all come in the form of life support systems, I think. So these are, what we're bringing to the committee is these top life support system needs. And so they're both, parallel. And so that's, I think, but if, at this point in this committee meeting, I'd say both of those are critical at this point in the session.
Thank you, Representative Fogelman. I do have a question, Mr. Frawley. So the treetop trail, try saying that many times, I will not say it more than twice, was privately funded, correct? Just out of curiosity, why that project was put ahead of the hospital, if the hospital is in dire straits and needing assistance, and because we're getting asked that, so.
That's fine. Yep.
Thank you.
Committee Chair, Madam Chair, committee members, the Treetop Trail was driven by a private donor initially with a $10 million gift. And so that's, I think, what got that project jump-started. That was a donor choice. And then the state did match that donor, or those early funds with an $11 million of support. The Treetop Trail, although obviously it seems like a public or a public-facing project and not like an emergency behind-the-scenes project, it also raising up, 2/3 of our money is privately raised. So we have to have a zoo that people want to come to and continue to drive our gate because we only get 1/3 of our funding from the state. So what we try to do is we try to balance, driving the tenants to the zoo and having reasons for people to come to the zoo with, the deferred maintenance and the needs of the zoo as far as infrastructure needs. So it's a delicate balance because we have to we're not fully funded from the state. We only get 1/3. So I think we have to look at each project. And that project was donor-driven at that time. This is in 2000, this goes back 9 years. We were also, when we first looked at the animal hospital, when that project was moving forward, the animal hospital, we were looking at a renovation possibly for the hospital, and that took a couple years of architectural investigation, and we found that the hospital was not able to be repaired. So it was a little bit of a timing, but those are the reasons, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Frawley, and that's why you're in the position that you're in and we are not there. So thank you for the work that you do. A lot of decisions to make, I assume, that are not very easy too. Representative Carroll, and then unless there's other member questions, Representative Carroll will have the last question.
Thank you.
So
Thank
go
you,
right
Chair.
ahead. Yeah, we're saving the best for last
Well, I don't know about that, but I appreciate it.
until we have to.
So I see we have some FFA kids here, and thanks for coming. I grew up with FFA in my community. I grew up in a small farming community. I was a town kid, though. I wasn't a farm kid. And so there wasn't a rivalry between them, but there was a difference. And so I appreciate the FFA. And because of that, we had a vet in town, and he did both large animal and small animal. And as I recall back then, there was a shortage of veterinarians. And this is kind of a convoluted question, but it made me think about what you guys had said in terms of the need for vets. And are you doing anything in your capacity to help increase veterinary student capacity? It's a very limited enrollment. There seems to be a growing demand. And what, if anything, is being done? This may be out of your realm, but nonetheless, I wanted to bring it up. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Frawley or Dr. Rivas?
Well, I'll go first, and I'll pass it on. Madam Chair, committee members, we are working closely with the Minnesota Vet Association, which represents, I believe, almost 1,400 vets around the entire state, and how they recruit, retain, inspire vets here in Minnesota, and how they provide resources. This project, like Dr. Rivas said, is a teaching hospital designed with those types of partnerships in mind so that we can give those groups like the Minnesota Vet Association tools to help offset their big job of recruiting, retaining, inspiring. The same thing goes with the University of Minnesota that we talked about earlier. We're meeting with them on a regular basis with this project to make sure that the design of it helps answers and delivers some of the solutions for those problems of recruiting, retaining veterinarians. But I'll pass it on to Dr. Reeves. She's a veterinarian, so maybe she has her own points.
Thanks, Director Frawley. Yes, so I think, yes, there's two key components here. One is recruitment and expanding training capacity for bringing up the future veterinarians. The second is retention in the field. We have talked a lot about, as a profession, especially in our post-pandemic years, it's a very challenging profession. There's a lot of pressures on them. We touched on in this presentation the mental health strain on the profession. And so we are one small facet of the profession in zoo medicine, but our hope is having this facility is another opportunity to just provide an increased support network for veterinarians in the state. You can imagine you're a small town veterinarian and one of your clients calls up and they've got their bunny rabbit's not doing well, but you're a dog cat vet. And rabbits are hard if you don't take care of them on a routine basis. And you're out there on your own trying to figure out what to do, trying to keep your client happy, and having a support system that you can call on when you're faced with these species that you're not as familiar with, and having that backup so you don't feel like you're out on your own is one of those ways we hope to continue to support veterinarians in the state of Minnesota, because traditionally there hasn't been a really strong network of non-traditional species training in this state, and that's part of why we've been building that relationship with the University of Minnesota, is to help strengthen that aspect of the curriculum and continuing education for veterinarians once they're out in their careers.
All right, well, thank you so much for presenting today in front of the committee, and thanks for bringing some friends with you. Appreciate your time, and we'll keep you posted as the bonding process moves along.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.